Today we're speaking about the Haftorah. We see how it ties into current events. The Haftorah of Sefer Shmuel. It ties in with current events and it ties in with the Parsha. How does it tie in? Take a look. It's amazing over here that what happens over here. Shmuel Hanavi is what? Rebuking the Jewish people because the Jewish people, Avi, asked for a king. They asked for a king. And what's the problem with asking for a king? It's a mitzvah in the Torah, Soim Tosim Alecha Melech, to Tayag mitzvot, just like there's a mitzvah to put on tefillin, or to eat kosher, there's a mitzvah to appoint a king. So why was Shmuel Hanavi so upset, and why was God upset? But before we get to that, how did Shmuel Hanavi going to show his displeasure? And how does it tie into current events? If you look at the Haftorah, it's verse 17. Halok tzir chitim hayom. This is early summer. It's the beginning of the harvest season. Ekra el Hashem. I will call out to God to show God's displeasure that you guys asked for a king. V'yiten kolot umatar. And God is going to send thunder and rain in the beginning of the summer. What happened this week in Ashkelon? There was a thunderstorm and rain. Not in Tel Aviv, not in Jerusalem, but in Ashkelon there was a heavy thunderstorm the beginning of the summer. And amazing that this Haftorah speaks about, that's a sign of God's displeasure. But now it's a sign of God's pleasure because it's going to get rid of all those kite firebomb kites, right? So now it's a good sign, but again, it's current events in the Haftorah, yes?
It rained so hard, the state road, it was flooded.
It was flooded, okay, that's what happened over here. God sent down a torrential downpour in the beginning of the summer to show that God was very upset when the Jewish people asked for what? For a king. And so was Shmuel Hanavi. The question is, if you check the Sefer HaMitzvahs, Abraham, and the Chinuch and the Rambam, just like there's a mitzvah to put on tefillin and to shake a lulav on Sukkot and to eat matzah when? Pesach. There's a mitzvah to what? Soim Tosim Alecha Melech. So why? It's a mitzvah in the Torah. Why, oh why, was God and the prophet so upset? Yes?
I think because we wanted it to be like the nations.
But that's what the Pasuk says, Mikimia. In Parsha Shoftim it says, we want to be like the nations. And God says that's fine. We want to be like the Goyim. That's the quote in Shoftim, where the Torah commands us to what? To appoint a king. It says they're going to say we want to be like the Goyim. So the Rambam answers this question, and he says because they didn't ask Lishma, like Mickey said. They didn't ask Lishma. Because they figured that Samuel is very Haredi, and if they get a king, he'll be more modern, he won't be so... But what's the problem, Marla? We know that the Gemara in Psachim, page 50, and Tainus, page 7, says, La'olam yasik adam b'mitzvos tafila shelo lishma. Shematov shelo lishma, ba lishma. And the Rambam rules like that. In Hilchas Tshuva, a person should always do mitzvahs, even shelo lishma, because eventually what? You'll graduate. So the Rambam seems to be contradicting himself. He says they didn't ask lishma, and therefore God was upset. Judaism, David, like Nike, just do it. I don't care what the reasons are. Just what? Do it. Lo'olam yasik adam la'olam, it says. Rabbi Abraham Chaim Volozhin stresses la'olam. He stresses, the Gemara says la'olam. A person should always do mitzvahs. Shelo lishma. La'olam. Always. It's always good. Just do it. Because eventually, Avi, you'll do it for the right reason. You get a guarantee from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If you do mitzvahs for selfish reasons, you keep doing it, eventually you'll graduate. So what is the problem over here? So they didn't do it lishma. Like Mickey says, like Rambam says, so what? What's the problem? So the answer is as follows. Mitzvahs are very important, but there's something that comes before mitzvahs, Avi. What's that? Beautiful. I can go home now. Derech eretz kodma laTorah. Derech eretz comes before mitzvot. Where's the Akaras HaTov for Shmuel Hanavi? Shmuel Hanavi gave his lifeblood for the Jewish people since he was a little tot. Now you want to throw me away like a alte Schmatte? How do you say that in Yiddish? What am I? I want an old rag.
An old rag.
Huh? I'm not good anymore. If the Jewish people would have waited, Avi, until Shmuel HaNavi dies, and then asked for a king, kol hakavod. But don't be a tzaddik on someone else's places. How do you say that in Yiddish?
Not on someone else's
So, thank you. Right? So, Shmuel HaNavi felt anguish. He felt humiliated and upset, and God felt his pain. And therefore, God and the prophet were so upset. Ben Adam lechavero. Isn't that an amazing idea? Otherwise, why should they be upset? It's a mitzvah from the Torah. Yes, wait until Samuel dies, and then b'vakasha. But where's your gratitude to the great prophet that dedicated his whole life for the Jewish people? And he felt humiliated, ashamed, and upset, and therefore God felt his pain, and therefore God was displeased by sending a thunderstorm in the beginning of what? Of the summer. Huh? But today the thunderstorm is good because it got rid of the kites, Baruch Hashem. Right?
So it really was in the south, it wasn't here in Jerusalem?
No, it wasn't here. It was only in your neighborhood where the kites are. Sarah, Quinky Dinky, it wasn't here to get rid of the kite. I mixed up firebomb kites or kites firebomb.
Firebomb kites.
Thank you. But not in Jerusalem. Adi Quinky Dinky, Dafken Ashkelon, which is a stone's throw from our peace partners, sending us what? Kites. The new types of terror. Right?
Rabbi, when you say
Kite terror. Oh, kite. It poured in Ashkelon. Isn't that amazing? Out of the blue. Hashem's miracle, like 3,000 years ago in the days of what? Shmuel. Then it was a sign of God's displeasure. Now it's a sign of God's what? Pleasure.
when you're saying about mitzvah,
Right?
you do a mitzvah. If you do it just for the sake of doing a mitzvah,
It doesn't matter. If you want to show off to your neighbors, fine. Right?
mean anything?
What?
Does it mean anything?
La'olam yasik adam b'torah mitzvah afilu shelo lishma shematol shelo lishma bo lishma. Person should always do mitzvahs and study Torah even for selfish reasons, because eventually he will what? Graduate. For the right reasons. Just do it. But over here the problem wasn't that the mitzvah. The problem was that by requesting a king they gave a shtach to Shmuel HaNavi, and God felt that pain, and therefore he was displeased, to say the least. Vayikach Korach. What is the message for us with Korach? If you go back to the Parsha, it's Bamidbar 16. Vayikach Korach. So who was part of the, who were the co-conspirators? Korach, Dosan v'Aviram, DNA. We still have the Dosan v'Aviram today. They're very prevalent today. The Dosan v'Avirams, unfortunately, are very active today, to say the least. Whether you call them J Street or Jews for Palestine, but that's the DNA, the Dosan v'Avirams, and On Ben Pelet. So those were the co-conspirators. But On Ben Pelet disappears, Sarah. He just disappears. What happens to him? So Dr. Hackett's quoting Gemara in Sanhedrin that Mrs. Ben Pelet said, "You're a fool." Right? You're a fool. Because you'll never be an Indian. You'll always be an Indian, you won't be a chief. If Korach wins, you'll still be an Indian. If Moshe's in charge, you're still a follower. If Korach's in charge, you're still a follower. So it's not your fight. What are you picking a fight for? It doesn't make any sense. So she saved his life. Right? She saved him. And the others were taken in, and they went down to the pit. On Ben Pelet, what happens to him? You know, the Bnei Korach also were involved in the conspiracy. But at the last minute, they did tshuva. What about On Ben Pelet? The Talmud says he also did tshuva. That's why he was called On. On from the word onen. What does onen mean in Hebrew? A mourner. He couldn't stop mourning that he was what? Such a sinner. How could I rebel against God and Moshe Rabbeinu? He continued beat up on himself. Therefore, he was called On. What about the Bnei Korach? How come they weren't called On? They also did tshuva. They also did tshuva. And On ben Peles did tshuva, but he disappears from Jewish history. And the Bnei Korach, they go on to write the most beautiful psalms in Tehillim. The holiest day, Rosh Hashanah, right before Shofar blows in, whose psalm do you read? Bnei Korach. Lamatzel Bnei Korach. The holiest moment of Rosh Hashanah, right before you blow Shofar, you read what? Bnei Korach, their psalm. Look at the level that they attained. What about On ben Pelet? He also did tshuva. But you don't hear anything from him. What happened? So Sarah said, On. There are two types of tshuva. A person can beat up on himself, but there's a time when you have to what? Move on. On couldn't get out of the depression. I did such a terrible sin, and it destroyed him. The Bnei Korach took that sin, and they built on it. They became the great Bnei Korach in Psalm. Despite their sin, Avi, but perhaps because of their sin. So it depends. People always sin. Adam ein tzadik ba'aretz asher yaseh tov v'lo yechta. It's a pasuk in Koheles. Everybody sins. Sheval yipol tzadik, says Mishlei. V'kam. Person will fall 7 times. So why is he called a tzadik? V'kam. And the Baal Shem Tov says, he puts a little spin on it. Only when a person falls 7 times and continues to get up, only then is he called a tzaddik. But On couldn't make that adjustment. He could not stop feeling sorry for himself. Of course, feeling sorry, charata and busha is part of tshuva. Without busha v'charata, you can't do tshuva. But there comes a time, Elisheva, when you have to move on. On couldn't make that adjustment. The Bnei Korach became the great prophet Levite singers despite their sin, but I think because of their sin. This idea is actually found in Parshas Vayera. Now keep in mind, the Torah doesn't tell me any stories. The Torah is only GPS, God's personal system for the year 2018. In Parshas Vayera, the Malach takes Lot and his family outside of the burning city. The city's going to be nuked, or was nuked. And he says to him, Himolet al nafshecha al tabit achrecha. If you want to save your immortal soul, don't keep looking back. So we don't need to know what the Malach said to Lot 3,800 years ago, Avi, in some isolated road outside of Las Vegas. Sodom. What's the message? The Malach is speaking to every one of us. Otherwise, it wouldn't David be in the Torah. Himolet al nafshecha. If you want to save your soul, al tabit achrecha. Don't follow On ben Peles. Don't keep looking back to your evil past. Don't fall into Satan's trap of yiush, like On ben Peles. Al tabit achrecha. Get over it. Avram, like you say, it's a time to move on. Charata busha, you sin? I'll do better. I'll become better. What a message that the Malach said 3,800 years ago. To save your soul, don't keep feeling sorry for yourself. Everybody sins. Koheles chapter 7. But Avi, what do you do after the sin? You wallow in your shame and misery? Or do you move on? Beautiful. Lamatzel lifnei Korach mizmor. They wrote those beautiful psalms after their sin, when they did tshuva. King David, so I think you have to move on. But Psalm 51, the classic psalm of tshuva that King David wrote after his lovey-dovey affair with whom? Bathsheba. Not Elisheva, Bathsheba, right? He says, V'chatosi negdi tamid. He says, didn't I just say there's a time to what? Move on. But King David seems to contradict me, Yosef, in Psalm 51. He says, V'chatasi negdi tamid. My sin is always what? In front of me. Hey, get a life. King David, didn't you listen to my shir? Didn't you listen to the Malach? Al tabit achrecha? So Rashi is so profound. See, Rashi will never comment in Tanakh or Gemara unless something is bothering him. And here Rashi comments, what's bothering him? Why is he keeping wallowing in his guilt? Chatosi negdi tamid. King David, you sinned, you did tshuva, get a life. So Rashi's bothered by that. How do you know he's bothered by that? Because he comments. And he says, Lefanai. Ava, what does Lefanai mean? Forward. Because I sinned, now I'm able to progress and become much greater than I was before the sin. The most beautiful Psalms King David wrote. When, David? After his sin with Bathsheba. Not a license to sin. Everybody sins. But what do you do after you sin? Do you wallow in your guilt like Om Ben Peles? And your life is over? Or do you move on?
Move on.
Beautiful. Who said that? And therefore Rashi comments, Chatosi negdi tamid, Rashi says, Lefanai. Because of my sin with Bathsheba, I'm able to move on. I'm not going to wallow in the shame and the guilt. I paid my price. Now it's time onwards and upwards. Like the B'nai Korach. Like the B'nai Korach. Powerful message. Moshe Rabbeinu hears their complaints and he faints. He faints. Vayishpa Moshe yipal al panav. So the Gemara in Sanhedrin says something incredible. What did Moshe hear that made him faint? Sanhedrin page 109 says that they accused Moshe Rabbeinu of, are you sitting down, Elisheva? Of playing around with their wives. Can you imagine? Korach and the band of mutiny in the, not mutiny on the bounty, mutiny on the Sinai. Tractate Sanhedrin 109 says, why did Moshe faint? Because they accused him, David Giddis, of hanky-panky with their wives. Korach and the band of rebels. You hear this? The most ridiculous, it doesn't make any sense. Moshe Rabbeinu, the holiest man. What's the message? Korach was brilliant. He was a scholar, brilliant. But when people get involved, surely, in machlokes, they become ois mensch. They become totally irrational. Such a ridiculous, crazy charge that makes no sense. These were rational people. These were great people. Once you get involved in machlokes, David, you lose it. Kina. You lose it. Kina. The Mishnah says, Elisheva, hakina, v'hatava, v'hakovod, destroy a person. Korach, his kina, his kavod, destroyed him to make such a crazy charge to accuse Moshe Rabbeinu of adultery, no less. But this is what happens when a person gets trapped in machlokes. He becomes, how do you say in Yiddish, ois mensch? I mean in English.
Out of it. You become degraded.
His Rebbe wasn't there to keep an eye on him.
Yeah. Ois mensch, incredible. Right? The Oin Ben Peles' wife saved him. She did her tikkun, Professor Chaya, because Isha's gematria musar. You know, I know you're good at math. You're a professor of mathematics. Aleph Shin Hey, wife in Hebrew, is the same gematria as musar. The job of a wife is to rebuke her husband. But Yehuda Lev just said, he's also good in math, that musar is also gematria devash. Dalit bet shin is gematria musar. It's the gematria isha. The job of a wife is to give musar, but she has to give it in a honey way. Honey, I'm home. Otherwise, it's counterproductive. Isha gematria musar, but also gematria devash. The wife has to rebuke her husband, but she has to do it in a sweet way, otherwise it's counterproductive. So Mrs. Ben Peles, she did her job, but not quite, because she couldn't get him out of depression. I guess she was too hard on him. You no good. Right? I guess she was too hard on him, otherwise because he couldn't get out of that depression, unfortunately, right? So Pasuk in Mishlei 14. Chachmas noshim bansa beito. Wise women build their family. Right? But foolish women destroy it. Foolish women destroy it. Right? So we have to know that the job of our wife is to give us musar, and we should appreciate that, because that is their job. Now, just amazing that the Dasan the Aviram, Rav Soloveitchik, he asked the question, why does the Torah write about Dasan the Aviram? Such disgusting low-life characters. Such self-hating Jews. So Rav Soloveitchik says the Torah is GPS, it's not history. So they said these disgusting self-hating statements. Knocking the Jewish people, putting Pisgat Zev down, insulting God and the Holy Land. Why does the Torah have to record it? The great Rav Soloveitchik 60 years ago must have Ruach HaKodesh. Why record it? So they said these disgusting self-hating statements. Why record it? Oh, don't steal my thunder, Elisheva. So 60 years ago, the Soloveitchik said, we have to know that the Dasan the Aviram syndrome, the DNA, Dathan, please close that, Dathan and Aviram syndrome,
We have plenty of them today.
is alive and well. It's not a one-time phenomenon, said the great Rav Soloveitchik. It's not a one-time phenomenon. Unfortunately, the Jewish people are going to be haunted with the Dasan the Aviram, the DNA syndrome, throughout our history. We have to know it, he said. We have to identify it and not become depressed. Right. That just like the Geula Mitzrayim happened despite Dasan the Aviram, despite their sabotage, the final Geula will also happen despite our current Dasan the Aviram. Professor, whether we call it J Street or whether we call it If Not Now, When, the Tzelem, these are the modern day Dasan the Aviram. Don't get depressed, Elisheva. Been there, done that. And the Torah writes it down that it's going to haunt us. The self-hatred, and not to become depressed, because just like the first Geula happened, despite Dasan Aviram, the final Geula will happen despite them, and we know we're close because their self-hatred is intensifying. Just read the papers. Now they're infiltrating the conservative Camp Ramah. This conservative camp, I don't have to tell you, is being infiltrated by the Dasan Aviram. These self-hating Jews are brainwashing the counselors of the whole conservative movement. To hate Israel, to hate Judaism. Hello, Dasan Aviram, alive and well.
What about the Satmar? The Satmar who put down Israel because of the Zionism?
That's right. I think Dasan Aviram also wore a strimal. I think the Dasan Aviram, they dress Haredi probably. These self-hating Jews, the Satmar who rented out the Nassau Coliseum, Yiddish, Sarah? The Nassau Coliseum, they rented out, they have money for that. To what? To slander the state of Israel. But anyway, this is the Dasan Aviram syndrome, and it's increasing like the Turakarta, but this is a sign that the final Geula, the forces of the Sitra Achra, the forces of Tumah, David, are making a last stand. You know, before a candle goes out, what happens, Elisheva? It flickers. So the forces of Tumah are ganging up, and they want to stop this, but they can't. So the whole Parsha speaks about machlokes. Unfortunately, Jewish people are haunted by machlokes. Right? Reminds me of a story. Now, all my stories are true, Professor, but some didn't happen yet. But they're all true. This couple were arguing, they're learning Parshas Korach, and the couple were involved in machlokes and arguments and fights. So they went to a marriage counselor. So the marriage counselor says to the husband, your problem is you have too much pent-up energy. Jog 7 miles a day for a week. And you'll get rid of your pent-up energy, and you'll see you won't have Korach to argue and fight with her. And call me in a week. Jog 7 miles a day, 7 days, and call me in a week. Okay? 7 miles a day. In a week, call me if things are better with you and your wife. A week goes by, and the husband, he calls the marriage counselor. He calls him. So the marriage counselor says, no, how are things? He says, Doc, I'll tell you, the first couple of days were very hard. 7 miles a day, but then I got into it, Shirley. I got into it, and now I'm jogging fine. She says, yeah, but how are things with you and your wife? So the husband says, how should I know? I'm 49 miles away. Get it? 49 miles, 7 miles times 7. Okay. What? Very interesting. Korach, Pikei Achoy. Rashi quotes Chazal. Korach was brilliant. Maro l'shtutze. Why do you see this foolishness to go pick a fight with Moshe Rabbeinu? Mutiny in the Sinai desert. He was a brilliant man. Maybe. Now, some people, after they're dead, they put the phone in the box with them. They just can't. I read about it. They can't let go. Yeah, right. They just can't let go. It's a sickness, Nebuch. When they're dead, after 120, not now. Okay? Where was I? What? Korach was brilliant. How could he pick a fight with Moshe Rabbeinu? Rashi says his prophetic eye misled him. He saw b'nevuah that his grandson will be Shmuel Hanavi, who equals Moshe and Aaron. And Moshe Rabbeinu's grandson, Yonatan, is going to be a deformed rabbi, a Navi Sheker to Avodah Zarah. You hear this? Yep. Look in the book of Shoftim. Yonatan ben Gershom ben Moshe was a false prophet to an idol, no less. The rabbi said, are you crazy? Look at your grandfather. He says, listen, it's a job. It's a job. All right? I don't believe in the nonsense, but it pays well. A nice house. Nice contract. So his prophetic eye misled him. My grandson, Shmuel Hanavi, equals Moshe and Aaron. His grandson is going to be what? A priest to an idol. Who should be giving orders to whom? It was like a bone stuck in his throat. So God says, I know that, but I still want Moshe Rabbeinu. I don't care about your grandson and his grandson. What about you? I don't want you, because you're full of arrogance and pride and jealousy. And Moshe Rabbeinu, anav ma'od mikol adam. Moshe Rabbeinu, the Torah testifies, was what? The most humble man. It's just amazing that 3,300 years before Sigmund Freud says that people project their defects onto others, right? Yeah. Well, 3,300 years ago, the Talmud says, already Korach accused Moshe Rabbeinu of what? Madua tisnasu al kahal Hashem. Why are you being so arrogant and bossy over God's people? That's what he accused Moshe Rabbeinu of. David, projection. He was arrogant and bossy and lorded it over God's people, so he projected his own defects, his own character flaws and faults onto whom? Moshe Rabbeinu, the most humble man on the face of the earth.
But he also thought...
What?
He also thought that Moshe Rabbeinu picked Aaron.
Right. Should have picked me. Nepotism. Right? Nepotism. Why'd you made yourself king? Why did you make your brother the big kahuna, right? So Korach projected his faults onto Moshe Rabbeinu. He was like that. He was hankering after what? Honor, glory, kavod, and he couldn't swallow that his cousin was going to give him orders. He couldn't swallow that. And it was his ruin. It caused his destruction. But it's just amazing that Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't come out smelling like a rose either. Moshe Rabbeinu tells them, Rav lachem b'nei Levi. Rav lachem b'nei Levi. You have too much Kedusha. What more do you want? So the Talmud in Saita, page 13, says boomerang. I say boomerang in Hebrew. Boomerang. 39 years later, David, when Moshe Rabbeinu begged God, please let me into Pisgat Zev. So God said to him, Rav Lacha. Those same words that Moshe used to what? Against Korach and the Levites. You have too much Kedusha, what do you want more? So God says, Rav Lacha, you have enough Kedusha, you don't need the Kedusha of Pisgat Zev. It's enough for you. Frightening. Midah keneged midah. Be careful not to mock one's ambition and aspiration. Even if people are wrong, there's a way to rebuke them with sensitivity and love and caring. HaKadosh Baruch Hu refused Moshe's pleas to come to Eretz Yisrael. With the same words, God threw it back in his teeth. Rav Lacha. What a powerful message. When you rebuke a fellow Jew, David, you have to be extra careful, extra sensitive, to do it with love and courtesy and kindness. Otherwise, chas v'sholom, it can boomerang. Even the great Moshe Rabbeinu, God said you were too harsh the way you spoke to Korach and the Levites. You shouldn't have said Rav Lachem. You should have tried to reason with them in a more loving fashion, and because you didn't, God refused his how many pleas did? 515 Vatchanan, right? 515, and God used the same words, a kick in the teeth, Shirley. Ravloch, God says.
What's the
Ravloch, Al Tosa Daber Elai. Don't talk to me about this. You said Rav Lechem to the Bnei Levi, I'm going to use Rav Lechot too.
What's Rav Lechem in English?
Too much. You have enough Kedusha, enough spirituality. So God said, Moshe, what do you want to come to Israel for? You got Genug. Genug to stay in the Midbar. How do you say Genug? Enough, thank you. Rav. What a message. David, what a message. Before we rebuke a fellow Jew, we have to think 19 times how to say it. And if we can't say it with love and respect and with courtesy, don't say it at all. Look how it cost Moshe Rabbeinu. Incredible. Gemara Sota, page 13. It's frightening. What a message. What a message. Wow. Machlokes. It's such a terrible sickness that the Jewish people are haunted by machlokes. Rashi says, Ein machzikin b'machlokes. Don't persist in machlokes. Rashi doesn't say don't engage in machlokes. Rashi is very careful with his words. It's a Chazal in Sanhedrin. The Talmud doesn't say do not engage in machlokes. How come it doesn't say that, Professor? It's just impossible. It's just impossible. The Jewish people are cantankerous. How do you say that in English? And we love to argue. But ein machzikin b'machlokes, Marla. Don't persist. You have to know when to give it up. Yes, argue. Have a good argument, but then genug. Masbik. Give it up. Ein machzikin. You don't persist in machlokes. That was Korach and Dosan Aviram's mistake. They couldn't give it up. Have your peace and fall weiter. But no. That was their mistake. Wow. Now, the Haftorah that we read, and we're going to read the Shabbos, the Haftorah is always connected to the Parsha, a strong connection. Here there's another strong connection. If you go back to the Haftorah, I think it's 1186 in the Art Scroll, Shmuel HaNavi is the grandson of whom? Of the mutineer. In fact, he only rebelled in the mutiny because he saw in the Nevuah that what? You can have such a great son like Shmuel HaNavi. So Shmuel HaNavi has to come and do the tikkun for grandpa. Here it is, David. the tikkun for grandpa. What did grandpa say? Nepotism. Moshe made himself king. We all heard God's voice. We're all equally holy and great. Who died and left you boss? And you made your bro the big kahuna. That's what grandpa said. But look at the Haftorah, David. There's an extra book there. Chaval, no one's using it. Look at the Haftorah, verse 6. I think it's 1186, verse 6. This is Shmuel Hanavi, the grandson. V'yoyim Shmuel Alam Hashem Asher Osa Moshe v'Aaron. Not like grandpa said Moshe and Aaron appointed themselves, but he says God is the one that made Moshe and Aaron boss. Grandpa, you're wrong. They did not appoint themselves. Hashem, verse 6, you see that, Yehuda? Shmuel says to the people, Hashem made Moshe and Aaron boss. And in case you don't get it, he repeats it in verse 8, Masha. In verse 8, he repeats this. When you came, Yaakov and the family came to Mitzrayim and you were enslaved, Vayishlach Hashem et Moshe. In case you don't hear it the first time, Vayishlach Hashem et Moshe v'Aaron. God sent Moses and Aaron to redeem you. They didn't appoint themselves. So he is coming to what? To be metakein the chet of the tikkun. Thank you. Of what? Of great-grandpa. Nachon? Of great-grandpa. Amazing. Now Rashi makes a frightening statement over here. If you go in the text, it's important to look. These people go to hell, she'olah. They go to hell. She'olah. How do you say hell in Hebrew? She'ol. She'ol. Why is hell in Tanakh? Gehenna is a Talmudic phrase. Gehenna is a Talmudic term. Gehenna means the valley of Gehenna. You know that? Near the Cinematheque, it's Gehenna there. Why? Because that's why they did child sacrifice to the Molech. And there, Professor Chaya, the archaeologists are finding altars with skeletons of children, their throats cut. So Chazal couldn't think of anything more horrible where people would sacrifice their children to the Getchkis, so they coined that phrase as hell. Gehenna means the valley of Hinnom, near the Cinematheque. That's where they performed the child sacrifice to Molech. But in biblical terms, in this week's Parsha, by Midbar 16:30, the word hell is called Sheol. Sheol. Why is hell called Sheol? Look at the word Sheolah. It's the same word as She'elah. Chaval, you don't have a book. She'elah, the word Sheolah is the same, there's no dots in the scroll, in the Torah scroll. The word Sheolah is the same word as She'elah. Why is it? It's by Midbar 16 verse 30 in the Hebrew. V'yodu chayim she'olah. Again in verse 33, they went down she'olah. Without the dots, it's the word she'elah. Why is hell in Tanakh called? What does she'elah mean? Question.
Question.
So Rabbi Yosef Albo, the Sefer Ikrim, explains. When a person dies, he doesn't go to a physical place. There's no physical fire. He goes, it's a state of mind. When a person dies without doing tshuva, Kodesh Baruch Hu is going to ask him, She'elah, roll that tape. You really did those disgusting things? Aren't you ashamed of yourself? How could you do that? That's the worst hell, said Yosef Albo. The burning shame where Kodesh Baruch Hu will stop the tape. You did that? How could you? She'elah, that's the worst hell. And that's why hell in biblical language is called Sheol. She'elah. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. It's God and me one-on-one watching that tape. But the best part is when you're still alive, you can erase that tape. You can delete that tape like Nixon did. Remember, I'm dating myself, Marla, huh? You do tshuva, you erase that ugly tape. Pretty incredible, huh? What machlokes is so. Rashi makes an amazing statement in Bamidbar 16, verse 27. The Torah says that Dosan ve'Aviram and their small children went down to the pit. Rashi is shocked. Rashi says, "Come and see how devastating is machlokes." The human court only punishes a person only when he's 13. The heavenly court doesn't punish a person until he's what? 20. And over here, innocent babies were destroyed because of machlokes. But that just begs the question, says the Chofetz Chaim, why is machlokes so devastating that even innocent babies have to be destroyed? Why? The Chofetz Chaim says as follows. There's a pasuk in Mishlei, Derechei darkei noam v'chol netivotei shalom. I'm not going to give up my day job, don't worry. What's God's long-term plan for the Jewish people? Mishlei says shalom. What does Tillim say? Hashem owes la'amo yiten, Hashem yevorech et amoy b'shalom. What's God's aspiration for the Jewish people? What's God's goal for the Jewish people? Mishlei and Tehillim tell us what? Shalom. What's a person's long-term plan and goal? What does a person want? Children to carry on his name. So God says, you're going to disturb my long-term plan and future? You're going to disturb Shalom, then Chas v'Shalom, boomerang. God will take it out, Chas v'Shalom, on a person's long-term plan for the future, which is what? Is his children, lo yaleinu. So that's what the Chofetz Chaim says, why machlokes is so devastating, because it goes against God's long-term plan and future, which is Shalom. So, midah keneged midah, Chas v'Shalom, a person's plan and long-term for the future, and ambition is his children. So chas v'shalom, that's why the Torah says such a terrible punishment. When a person is engaged in machlokes, it takes away God's ambition, God's long-term plan for the future. In fact, how does the last Mishnah in Shas En, Masechta Uktzim, the very last Mishnah in the oral Torah, Professor Chaya, is what? Tractate Uktzim. Lo imotza Kodesh Baruch Hu kli machzik bracha l'Yisrael el hashalom. God couldn't find a better bracha for the Jewish people than what? Shalom. And that it quotes the pasuk in Tehillim, Hashem yevorech et amoy b'shalom. So machlokes disturbs God's shalom. So chas v'shalom, God says boomerang. So therefore, a person has to be very careful. Everybody's machlokes, but you have to know when what? To stop. To give it up. To back away. But Korach just couldn't do it. He got trapped, his own kinah, his own kavod, as the Mishnah says, hakina v'atava v'kavod, cause a person to self-destruct. And he gets trapped. He just couldn't stop. You see that in shul. I just couldn't believe it. Rabbi Abraham, I wouldn't repeat it, I just saw it. I saw this mentality where the Yetzer Hara traps somebody in machlokes that he just can't stop. I saw it, Marla, with my own eyes, although I wouldn't repeat it. It's Erev Yom Kippur. Erev Yom Kippur, Avram. The shul is packed. And he's coming to daven mincha, one of the minchas there. A guy walks in, and there's somebody sitting in a seat. Erev Yom Kippur mincha. Shul is packed. So instead of saying, please move, he says, you're sitting in my seat, get out. Like that. And the other guy says, who the hell are you to tell me to get out of your seat? I don't see your name on it. And they keep going at each other. And people are shy. It's Erev Yom Kippur. And he has to get the last word, and he has to get the last word. Stop already. Evelyn, stop. They just can't stop. Yeah. Evelyn, you know that people do to you, I know. Nebuch. They just can't stop. You get involved in a machlokes. The devil traps you. Erev Yom Kippur, and they're yelling and fighting at each other that the other congregants have to separate them. Are you insane? Yes. It's temporary insanity when it comes to machlokes. People will fight over a maftir. Didn't give me maftir. How dare you didn't give me maftir? You think it's an honor for your dead father or mother? You're going to fight over maftir? You think it gives them covet? That you're fighting over a maftir? Are you insane? Yes?
I was told by Big Talmud Chacham, if you have come find your own seat, it's occupied, and if there's a seat free, which is within Dalet Amos of your regular seat, it's your makom, like your makom kapua.
Derech Eretz Kabbalah Torah. A guy is sitting in his seat, so what? You give him a vater. You go yell at him? At least tell him in a nice way, Yosef. No, but no, they yell at him. Get out of my seat. The other guy said, leave your seat. I don't see your name on it. But this is the machlokes, the Korach mentality. Is an amazing Rashi, Rabbi Emerson, the first Rashi in the Parsha. Rashi says, Parsha zu yofa nadreshet. This Parsha is beautifully darshaned. Strange Rashi. Which Parsha is not beautifully darshaned? All the Torah is beautiful. Why does Rashi say, Parsha zu yofa nadreshet? This Parsha is beautifully darshaned. Which Parsha is not beautiful? So they say, what Rashi means it, some rabbis are not good speakers. Some rabbis are not that talented, right? So they don't have what to speak about. When it comes Parshas Korach, even a mediocre rabbi has a beautiful drasha, because every shul has their Korach. The Balkoira, the Chazan, he wants Shvi, he wants Shishi. So Parshas Yofa Nadreshet. Even a mediocre rabbi has a beautiful speech prepared when it comes to Parshas Korach. Because Avi, unfortunately,
It happened during the year.
every shul has their Korach and their DNA. Dasan the Aviram is alive and well, Nebuch. Yes?
I'm still thinking of Sha'ola. Question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but Yom HaHu, then we'll know one, and we'll know everything is one. Things that were difficult,
Nachon.
challenges were really for our good, so it's all one.
Nachon.
When you go and you never have that answer, when you
No.
always have the question, that it was really like a pit, because you never get to see the connection.
You never get to see the
We
connection.
look forward to seeing
Nachon.
one, the Yom HaHu, right?
Bayoim Mahu.
But
Nachon. Nachon.
Your Sholah,
Shola. Sheila.
you never
Right?
get.
You never get your answer, right?
Never.
Right? But the great part is you can always do tshuva. Right? Even a minute before death, the Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva says that person could be a sinner all of his life. And a minute before he dies, if he does tshuva, his sins will be forgiven. That's between man and God. Between man and man, forget about it, Shirley, right? You pointed it out many times. Tshuva only helps paid Adam la-makayim. But if you sin against a fellow human being, God says, I can't help you. You must do right by the guy that you messed up, that you sinned against. God says, I can't help you. I can help you if you eat a cheeseburger. Mechala Shabbos, lobster, I can help you. But if you sinned against a fellow human being, God says that you have to do right by him. Otherwise, forget about it. Ben Adam lechavero. But getting back to rebuking somebody, how you have to do it with love and kindness, otherwise it can boomerang. And Moshe Rabbeinu somehow missed the mark here, according to Sota, page 13. And this idea you actually find in Psalm 51. Psalm 51, when Natsan Hanavi comes to rebuke King David for having an affair with Bathsheba. So we think he came a fire and brimstone. How dare you do that, you lowlife? Don't you know that she's a married woman? Even though she had a get, but technicality there. It says, Bevo elav Nasan Hanavi kasher bo el Bathsheba. Rabbi Rapam Zatzal pointed out, Nasan Hanavi came to rebuke King David, kasher bo el Bathsheba. What does that mean?
When he came to
Kasher bo el Batsheva. While he's having a date, he came to rebuke him? No, after the date. Kasher bo el Batsheva. Listen to Rapam, listen to this. Nosan HaNavi came to rebuke King David. Kasher bo el Batsheva. How did King David come to Bathsheba to get a date? Lovey-dovey. Otherwise, no date. That's how Nosan HaNavi came to rebuke King David. With the same love and affection that King David came to Bathsheba, that's how Nosan came to rebuke King David. If you read the Hebrew, if you read the English, you won't get it, but the Hebrew says that. Nosan came kasher bo, just like King David came to Bathsheba to get a date. How did he come? Lovey-dovey? Otherwise, no date. That's how Nosan came to rebuke King David. And if you can't rebuke a person that way, forget about it. Forget about it. Powerful. Any questions, comment? On Sunday we have a shiur about reincarnation. How Korach and Moshe were actually a reincarnation of Cain and Abel. That's Sunday at 2. I'll talk about reincarnation. Moshe and Korach are reincarnation of Cain and Abel. It ain't over till it's over. Or you can pay me now, or you can pay me later. Okay, that's Sunday at 2 o'clock. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.